Okay, hi, Paul Sakis, Good News Broadcast. This is a very important interview for all, I will say. Learn more about this year's respiratory virus season. We know lasted, we've lasted, and we've dealt with these last couple of years with COVID. We've lived longer with just a regular cold, and um, I can't remember the other thing that we have right now. Well, we have Dr. Amish Adjia. I hope I'm saying your name right, from a senior scholar at John Hopkins Center for Health Security and adjunct associate professor at the John Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And we're going to talk about respiratory illness. The flu, I'm sorry, it just escaped my brain. I think the flu is also part of this whole story. Is it, Doctor?
Definitely, this season influenza has really roared back with a vengeance, and we're in the midst of one of our more severe seasons in probably over a decade or so. So it's influenza, it's COVID, it's RSV, and a half dozen other viruses whose names people probably don't know.
Well, I've tried a lot of them, and I'll be honest with you, they're no fun, and they're concerning, and they're potentially deadly. You'll tell us more about these things, and so where's all this coming from? Any thoughts? And how can we deal with it?
Well, Well, respiratory viruses are sort of a fact of life. When humans went from hunter-gatherer societies to live amongst each other in villages and cities, they started to transmit their germs, including respiratory viruses. So when humans start to get into these settlements, that's when you see respiratory viruses take off. So for example, if you look in the works of Hippocrates, you can hear him talk about something called the cough of Perinthius, which was influenza. So this is something that people have been dealing with as long as people have been in civilized society. And these respiratory viruses are always going to try to infect us. They're a fact of life. If you socially interact, you're going to be at risk for getting a respiratory virus. Thankfully, we've got lots of tools that science and medicine have developed over decades that are able to make this as least disruptive as possible. But the key thing is people have to start using the tools more optimally because respiratory virus is more severe than it needs to be.
Let me ask you two questions. One is, what is the germs that are in our body that start with our body, and then next, how can I give you the flu? How does that happen?
Well, so influenza is a respiratory virus. So it's a virus. It naturally circulates in waterfowl, and you're hearing lots about bird flu now that has to do with this. But all of these viruses are in waterfowl. Some of them have adapted to humans, and they became our seasonal flu viruses. And people have this virus within them, and they get infected with it. It causes them to have symptoms like cough, fevers, chills, runny nose, congestion, and those respiratory droplets, those respiratory particles can pass from person to person. Also, if someone has mucus, for example, on their hand, and they put it on a surface, and then someone touches that and then touches their face, they can get infected. So that's the route. It goes from person to person through respiratory droplets and through surface contamination.
So when we say airborne, so I sneeze, you're next to me, you got it.
Exactly. So sneezing, coughing, laughing, singing, talking, respiratory viruses are very efficient at transmitting from person to person. They're probably the hardest thing to stop transmission of because they can be transmitted very casually. And when we think about influenza, for example, people can have symptoms and have no symptoms at all, actually, and still be contagious a day or so before. And that's also true with COVID. People can have no or minimal symptoms with COVID-19 and spread it to another individuals. That's how these viruses are able to cause pandemics.
There's a good company here that's having you come out and speak. invivyd. Are they a company? I like pharma. I think that, is that a pharma company?
It is. I'm partnered with invivyd to really increase awareness about this. And I am also a fan of pharmaceutical companies. I think they saved us from the COVID-19 pandemic, and they will continue to save us from many different infectious disease threats.
And they put a lot of time and money in R&D and come up with a solution. So we should be quite thankful, if you ask me. And tell me a little bit about you. Why are you into? Is it this your? Why are you the senior fellow over there? Why have you gone into this career?
So I've always been fascinated with infectious disease. When I was a child, my parents, who are both physicians, used to read me this book about Louis Pasteur. And Louis Pasteur was the person who invented pasteurization, was the person who developed the second human vaccine, the rabies vaccine. And I was basically captivated by it. And I really love the detective work of infectious disease. I like how infectious disease can impact every impact of society, as we all saw from COVID-19. I like really understanding how people get infected, what they get infected with. And I like exploring all the technological solutions that exist to help us deal with the world in which there's so many different microorganisms. If you were an alien looking at Earth, you would say, this is a planet of viruses, fungi, bacteria, protozoa, and maybe some other things. So we live in a planet that has so many different infectious organisms on it, and yet we thrive, we flourish. And part of that are the tools that science and medicine have given us, like vaccines, like monoclonal antibodies, like antivirals. I think that's a really fascinating story. I think civilization has been the process of basically taming infectious disease.
Wow, this is a great interview. I'm very learning a lot here. Is that why we're like going to the moon and we're going to Mars? You think that it's better up there?
No, I don't necessarily think it's better. I don't think it's very hospitable to human life, but I think those are important places to explore. And I'm really interested in the field of astrobiology, for example, trying to understand what makes life possible in certain areas. Is there bacterial or semi-bacterial or something similar to bacterial life on Mars? Very, very, very fascinating stuff. It's kind of endlessly, there's endless fascination there and endless little kind of rabbit holes you can go down to understand all of these important things about, the universe.
So let me ask you, we do the Earth Day concert here with the people that created Earth Day, April 22nd. We take over Times Square. And we've been doing these Earth Day, Peace Day for about 23 years. Um, is it Mother Earth? Is this part of our concern in the sense of infectious diseases?
No,
You
I
said
think that
it's foul and water, especially water. We're into water.
well, I would say that Mother Earth is probably a pretty harsh mother when it comes to infectious disease. Before we had vaccines, before we had sanitation, before we had antibiotics, the average lifespan was very, very low in the 20s. And when you think about what vaccines have done, for example, they've added decades to everybody's life. They've saved hundreds of millions of people's lives. So when people talk about Mother Nature, I think, Mother Nature is also where Ebola is. It's where bird flu is. It's where COVID came from. It's where every infectious disease threat comes from. And what scientists, pharmaceutical companies, and physicians do is make Mother Nature safer for us, make the world kind of, give us mastery over some of those dangers that Mother Nature poses from the infectious disease realm.
So to do that, because I'm interested, do we focus? I mean, are there people out there studying the birds enough as a result, that potentially they could be harmful to us?
Definitely, there are people doing research on birds and understanding what viruses they spread and how efficiently they spread them. This is part of the whole response to avian influenza that we're seeing right now, is understanding the migratory bird patterns, how migratory waterfowl are infecting poultry, and how poultry are infecting humans, and how waterfowl have infected dairy cattle. So yes, there is a lot of effort to try and unravel all of this so that we can be more resilient to it.
Unbelievable. This is really good. Any other good things that you'd like to share with our audience? The next steps, where should we consider going?
I just want to kind of remind people that COVID-19 is an endemic respiratory virus. In 2024, it still killed 47,000 people. That's comparable to how many people die in a car accident or how many people died in the Vietnam War. It's every 11 minutes. There are a lot of immunocompromised people out there that are still at risk for COVID. It still hospitalizes hundreds of thousands of people. There is a website that people can look at called expandtheiroptions.com, with I partner with invivyd for this. And that's where people can learn about COVID-19, the tools that there are, and take that to their provider and see if they may be a candidate for something.
Are you're personally involved with that website? I hope.
I
I
am.
hope. You're a smart guy.
I'm partnered with invivyd. It's their website. I'm involved with it, and it's a place where people can get kind of information that they can take to their doctor, and their doctor can help them navigate this. The thing is that there's lots of tools for COVID-19. We need people to use them. They don't need to be on shelves. They need to be in people where they're actually doing good and keeping people out of the hospital.
I got another shot last week. I had COVID. I told me to wait 4 months. I got another. I took the pneumonia shots. I'm in favor of taking shots. I think that I'm gonna be 76, so I'm staying in the game. So and farmers are helping me do that. What's the name of that website again, if you don't mind?
Expandtheiroptions.com. Thanks for the opportunity.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much for doing what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.